Welcome to Make Your Show, The Creators.
This series is intended to inspire and educate storytellers on how to produce films and series that offer examples of their work.
I'm John Kramer.
And I'm Jason Chichi, and this is episode 4.
Today we're talking to my good friend Nick Psinakis. Nick is an actor who started making his own work a long time ago, like when YouTube was still new, and has now gotten to the point where his company, 418 Films, has pitched and sold their work. Along the way, the skills he's picked up have helped him score work in other areas and open some fun doors.
We heard a lot of useful stuff in this conversation, like suggestions for those of us out there who may be afraid to start making their own work because the prospect of taking on new skills like writing, editing, working a camera or lights can be daunting. Don't be daunted.
There he is.
Hey! How are you guys? How's it going, guys?
Good, how are you?
Nice to meet you, Nick. Yeah, nice to meet you as well. I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm just, I'm settling back down in Los Angeles here. It's, I guess I've been here like 3 weeks or so, 3 or 4 weeks now.
Where were you before?
We were up in northern Pennsylvania. I saw Kramer at the Cape.
But it wasn't all fun and games, was it? It was a little bit of work too.
Yeah, we ended up shooting a movie during all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were planning on doing something a little bigger, and my writing partner had since moved to Pennsylvania. So we kind of quarantined there for 2 weeks and wrote a script.
And who's your writing partner?
Kevin Ignatius.
Kevin Ignatius, right.
We've done like all this stuff, even with Quinn, like Hookman, Jay. We've been working together for a long time. So
sure. So you and Kevin did some filming during COVID. That's really impressive.
It was a little ambitious, but it made more sense when I got there.
Yeah.
I was going to be there for 2 weeks no matter what. And he's like, I know we can't do this bigger thing that we were talking about with raising more money. And we had some friends that were on shows that were going to be a part of it. He's like, do you think we could do something just us, essentially? So it was me, Kevin, and Dave, our sound guy. That was it. We wrote it in 2 weeks. We had a car, so we didn't have to, fly any further than once we were there and quarantined. We wrote it in 2 weeks, kind of prepped it for probably 3.
You could do that work from anywhere?
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Because at that point, it was mostly the script was written. We were just dealing with logistics of schedule.
Pre-production stuff.
Yeah, and, all that kind of stuff. Fortunately, and we wrote it with this in mind, a lot of it was outside, almost all of it, and a lot of it was during the day. So we used a lot of the national forests, the waterfalls, the lake, just all the resources that were there, and then kind of, wrote it with that in mind. So, again, small footprint, small crew, not a lot of people. Kevin had seen 2 teenage brothers in a local play. And he's like, I know it sounds crazy, man. He's like, they're really good. He's like, we know their family. They're good people. It would just be us and them. They're Boy Scouts. We can make it cool horror film through the woods looking for mom,
So it was a horror film?
Yeah, it's like a horror. Yeah, it's a horror film. It's kind of like
a thriller?
Kind of like psychological thriller, more so than slasher.
Mm-hmm. I love those.
Yeah. So here, let me you guys look so nice. I got to adjust this little, I don't get the greatest light here in this place, but.
We're just using that sweet natural light.
What did you shoot it with? Did you, an actual camera? Was it like iPhone shooting? What were you shooting with?
No, so what we did is I own an A7, Sony A7, and we rented a 1971 Cooke zoom lens that they actually shot The Shining on.
Wow.
And I did a little bit of research about it. Again, it was all logistical stuff, right? So it was like, okay, it's just the 2 of us. We're going to be mobile, but we made a creative decision to really be a little bit more technical in terms of we wanted stuff locked off. We wanted smooth dolly stuff. So it wasn't going to be handheld run and gun, but it was going to be just us. So no crew, zoom lens. You don't have to switch lenses. You don't have to deal with any of that. Yeah, and it just had a cool vibe to it. And I did a little bit of research, rented it at a local production house. It was like $150 a day or something because it's an older, bigger lens, I guess, that doesn't move as much.
Wow.
From the rental house standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was
So
it.
this is a feature that you funded yourself.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to give you a little more kind of backstory. So
Sure. Well, this is so funny, right? We kind of just jumped right into it.
Yeah, we did.
we just did the thing.
I was going to say, you did this film, which we want to ask more questions about, because I think a lot of people that would watch this would be interested in, like, right now, how can I film right now? And also the kind of decision, the process that you went through, saying we had this other idea that probably wasn't going to work right now. So we switched gears very quickly. You guys adapted, we're nimble, but we're talking to people who probably want to make their own stuff, whether, primarily actors, maybe writers, maybe directors. And, the reason we wanted to talk to you specifically is because that was you, right? You were an actor. Yep. You started making your own stuff, and that was a long time ago. So maybe we should start at the beginning. What's the name of the film working title that you just filmed?
I would say the closest working title we have at the moment is The Pines.
The Pines sounds, in a way, kind of like starting over, right?
Sure.
The kind of project, small crew, no budget, right? I don't know, it sounds like you guys didn't raise money for this and used your own money for it, right?
We did not, no.
Yeah.
And we could talk about it more. I don't mind talking about this stuff again. But what's made it work for us, and is kind of like the idea of, being able to wear many hats. So my day job is an editor, and I totally got into that 100% from acting and making my own stuff. I'm self-taught.
So square one, you're an actor.
Never went to school for it. I only started that out of a necessity to be able to make my own work. And that's like kind of my day job. It's where I make most of my money now. But going back to the movie we just shot, the way that we're able to do those things is because we're all fairly capable with the camera. We're all around it a lot. I edit it. Kevin's a really great musician. So you kind of knock out almost all of post-production and even really production costs there. I mean, so we paid the lead actors, and we paid Dave, our sound guy.
How many actors did you have?
That's it. So we had the 2 teenage boys, which was the primary, bulk of the story. And then we had how many supporting? So I also played a supporting, another, person you don't have to pay.
Does Kevin act as well?
He does. He I would say not as much as me. He kind of dabbled with it. He still does it. He's kind of, he's like one of those just like really pure artists and just like really natural. And even in the music side, if it makes sense, he'll do it, but he's not, I wouldn't say he's actively seeking out acting work, where I still am, kind of thing.
But you saw Jay on the 418 Films is your production company.
Yeah.
418 Films, their Project Jay. That's Kevin and Jay, right?
He played the twins, the clone, and yeah.
He got 2 credits for that?
Yeah, 2 on IMDb for.
That's great. So what I'm hearing is that while it may seem like The Pines could have been a project that you would have taken on earlier in your career, let's say, in terms of making your own work, you probably wouldn't be able to pull it off if you hadn't had all the experience that you had, because you guys have all these new skills that you didn't have when you started making your own work.
Yeah, that's true. It's very, very fair to say. Yeah. But what I was going to say is just what happens is to keep the cost down. It's not to say you still can't do it or we still wouldn't be able to do it, but then you're either going into raising money, going into your own pocket at a much bigger kind of capacity, and then trying to recoup that. So what we've done over time, and going back to what you said, because we've been able to develop those skills, we think we can make a really great product inexpensively, which could let us keep doing it without having to wait a long period of time, raise money, go through any of the red tape or the hoops. So, and it's not to say that we don't still go out and pitch or attach to projects that take 2-3 years. It's more so like for us, for our soul, if we could do this maybe once a year and not break the bank, you kind of get the best of both worlds. You're being productive, you're pushing the bar up, hopefully, and you're getting to, be creative on your own terms. So,
yeah, that sounds great. Well, I really do want to talk about where you guys are now heading into the Pines before you decided to do that project, obviously because of current circumstances with COVID, that you guys had kind of a model now where, and that is a question a lot of people have, like, how do I get the money? What kind of money do I need? What do I need money for? And then how do I get the money? And then you're now, beyond that, where now you're how do I get that money back and make money?
Right.
But can we start just at the beginning and kind of quickly recap how you got to this? That's a really great place to be. So you start out, you're an actor. Yep. You went to school for acting.
I did. So I went to undergrad at the University of Delaware. I was a visual arts major and got scared and double majored in visual arts and business management.
Yeah.
And then towards my senior year, I really knew I wanted to act. I really kind of knew I wanted to do it. So I'm from New York. My parents are on Long Island. So I'm like, a bunch of buddies from college were moving to New York. So I moved to New York City. And shortly after, I did a lot of things backwards, but I went to New York City. I was like, I'm going to act. And I just kind of hit the ground running. And what I found is I was getting more opportunities. I was getting in more rooms than I probably should have. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So I'm like, I really need to learn and study and figure out, if I really want to do this. I always thought the best actors came from New York theater. So I really wanted to study that. So I went to a studio called William Esper Studio, which is a Meisner-based studio in Manhattan. It's really well known, really great alumni. Larry David went there, Sam Rockwell went there. Some really great people. Sam actually came back and spoke to my graduating class, or a year after I graduated. I forget which one. So that was like a 2.5-year conservatory. So that was really life-changing for me for that regard. While I was in New York, I was doing a lot of different stuff, a lot of auditioning, a lot of extra work. I was doing a lot of extra work trying to get my SAG card. I ended up somehow in a good position. For whatever reason, the casting director at Saturday Night Live liked me, and they have very few people.
I like how you phrase that. I have no idea why.
I don't know why. What's not to love?
Right.
Well, because it's an interesting thing. I think what happens is they have so few people in extra roles on those shows because of the live nature of it and how intimate it is and how you're around a host, a president. So I think they were, if you kind of prove that you're not completely out of your mind, they'll bring you back.
They're going to call you back.
So just got along with those guys well. And I had met Andy Samberg and the Lonely Island guys. Mm-hmm. And it's 3 friends that are best friends that
from your neck of the woods
went to high school together and basically were making their own videos. Mm-hmm. And that's how they got on Saturday Night Live. They weren't stand-ups. They weren't improv guys. It wasn't the traditional kind of people you hear about getting on that show.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate to work a really late night with them once. I think it was like a 16-hour day. And I was one of the only ones that was still there with them. And they were really nice to me and they were very kind to me. And they just told me, about they're like, dude, I don't know how it happens, man. Like we're lucky. We're making stuff like we were making stuff. We're just, we're getting paid now, it's like, so that was really another kind of major thing for me where I was like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to make stuff with my friends, with people I like, on my own terms, because those guys did everything. Now, Andy was like, he's the big star. He's the one everybody knows, but they all write together. They switch off directing. They have a big company now that does a lot of producing stuff that you don't always know that they're involved in. And I think that also helps with longevity. So I was like, that's what I want to do. And that was kind of the turning point where I started to teach myself how to edit. I bought a camera. And, me and my friends started making stuff. We actually made a really bad music video parody in lieu.
Why not? I mean, you're following in their footsteps. Go all the way.
What was the song?
The one that we did? I'm embarrassed to say it, but I will. It was My Blowout Haircut, and it was about Guidos on Long Island with spiky hair.
Nice.
Just played on all those types.
All the stereotypes.
Jersey Shore stereotypes.
Can this be seen anywhere? Can we see it anywhere?
I hope not, but it might still be floating around somewhere, unfortunately. Yeah.
All right, we'll do some research, Nick.
You luck into the lonely islands. You pay attention. You ask them for the secret to their success. They say, we don't know. We made stuff though.
Yeah.
So you start making stuff. You get the gear and you start teaching yourself how to edit. Are you like watching videos on YouTube? How are you learning how to edit?
Yeah, I mean, YouTube was still, so this was probably like 2006-ish, somewhere around there. So YouTube was still fairly new.
Early days.
But it was also big enough that I think you maybe missed the YouTube star or like make money YouTube channel boat. And I could be wrong. That's just my kind of interpretation. Because the Lonely Island guys were on a thing called Channel 101, which at the time was kind of
Dan Harmon.
YouTube Funny or Die type.
Yeah.
So totally self-taught. Yeah, literally YouTube and online. I never took a class in my life.
And this is where you meet. Where do you meet Kevin?
I meet Kevin in New York City in an acting class, oddly enough. We get paired up together to do a scene from Hurly Burly, I believe. Oh no, This Is Our Youth. It was This Is Our Youth, and it was a weird drug scene, and it's two teenagers, and they come back and they spill the coke everywhere and all this stuff. So we had to rehearse outside of class a lot. So we just were talking. Oh, I'm from Pennsylvania. I'm from New York. We both played hockey. We had similar things in common, similar people that we knew, acquaintances. He said, I'm moving to LA with my girlfriend. And I was like, oh, man, I want to do it. I always wanted to do it. I feel like you got to do it. The whole stereotype also, again, that you got to be in LA.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, listen, man, I'm going to be out there. Keep in touch. You want to come visit, whatever. And that's how I met him. We just stayed in touch.
Now, are you guys making stuff together before you moved to LA? He
was out here in LA for a couple of years before I came out. So we were making stuff on different coasts, believe it or not.
Together.
So the first thing we made, and this kind of goes back to self-editing and teaching yourself how to film stuff. The first thing that we made was a short film. And I said, hey, let's make this short film. I have this idea. It was very post-college kind of figuring out life type of thing. Stupid, whatever. But why don't you come back, we'll do it, we'll film it. And at that time I had a good bartending job. So I was just like, I'll pay for it. And it was still enough where the digital cameras were starting to come out. So it wasn't an exorbitant amount of money, a couple $1,000. We shot in 2 days, shot at my parents' house on Long Island, shot in my apartment in Manhattan, same kind of idea, small crew, a DP, camera, sound guy, And
was it written with locations you had in your back pocket in mind? I mean, is that how you? Yeah,
it was. I mean, for better or worse, we've kind of always reversed engineered in that way.
Yeah.
And in a way, I saw a Robert Arias interview where he's like, I now seek that out because I think it draws more creativity from you. Everybody's like, to have a huge imagination and endless possibilities. And that's the most creative thing you could do. But it forces you to really kind of be more creative. What do I have? How can I make it interesting, unique, fit within the story, work? So we've always been, reverse engineering.
Is that how with your latest project you decided, since it's more of a small concept, that you would go with like a different lens, or that you'd really get more into the technical part of it because that added sort of a special element to it as opposed to huge locations or big budgets?
For this particular one, you mean that we did?
For the Pines.
Yeah, for the Pines.
Okay, so fast forward, I end up moving to LA eventually, but we are going back and forth. I'm visiting Kevin. We are filming stuff each time. Eventually, I make the move. In the last 2 years, I believe, Kevin moved back home, which was northwestern Pennsylvania. Now, once he did that, it was immediate. We have to film a movie there because it's a super small town. I mean, very small. The northwestmost point of Pennsylvania. So it's bordering right on Ohio and New York State by Lake Erie. Not much around there, but beautiful, beautiful landscapes. So you have national forests, lakes, preserved land, waterfalls, boulders, a lot of stuff. So the idea is we could kind of go there and have carte blanche. It's a small community. His parents grew up there. His wife's parents grew up there. They know people. People are willing to help when you're in a small community. So once he was there, that was on our radar. That was definitely in our head. Now, COVID kind of scrambled that a little bit. in terms of what we were initially going to try to do.
So I'm kind of envisioning this, that we hear a little bit about your early experiences with making your own work. Because again, I think most actors, they start out making their own stuff. They think, I want to make work. You hear it, and not necessarily always are you given the same reason actors need to make their own work. But most actors, when they do make their own work, they're trying to further their acting career. They're trying to showcase their skills as an actor, have real material, have material to market themselves to casting directors, producers. But you definitely, it sounds like, have gotten to a different phase where you're not just focused on showcasing yourself as an actor. So it sounds like you kind of have had these 3 phases, and the latest phase with the Pines is brand new and because of COVID.
Yeah. But just, even just to backtrack on that a little, some of the acting work that I have had been all from stuff I've made myself. For example, we had I don't know if I should mention it, but whatever, we had a TV deal with a big studio. We were going to act in it. And we created it. And all of those meetings, all of those pitches, anybody that we met because of that project, including our agent at a very big agency, was because they saw stuff that we made ourselves. It was nothing else. It wasn't a guest spot on NBC. It wasn't a movie with, Russell Crowe. It was all based on stuff we had created ourselves that we then showed and sent it to them. So for the actors out there that, or maybe even just, I don't want to say just acting, but that's their primary focus, there is something to be said for that, And then, also, I mean, John, you know this too, when you're in acting class, at least, especially from a Meisner training standpoint, you kind of are writing, whether you are or not. You're improvising within the text and you're creating certain situations that are going to make you come alive, and you're trying to get real behavior, right? So, you're kind of writing without knowing it in a way. And the other thing it does is it gives you a chance to really stretch your muscle, because most people, especially in television, are going to probably cast you very close to who you are,
Sure.
You're going to be playing a really fine line of who you kind of are as a person, which is fine. And there's some great, nuggets in that, and there could be some great work in that. But, you might want to play something totally off type, or where normal people would have to really fight for those things. Here's an opportunity maybe to show someone, hey, you might not see me this way, but I could do this,
That's right.
I think for those things, and for also just your mental health, to be doing something, to be working, to be productive, the waiting for auditions. Listen, some people could do it. There's some people that like it and are great at it and like auditioning and like the life of just an actor. It drives, it makes me crazy. So I need to do something to keep myself productive. So when that does come up, I'm a little fresher. I have other stuff going on. It's not, oh my God, my one audition in 2 months. If I don't book this, I'm not eating. So it helps me with that too.
When we've heard this from other people that we've talked to now. Some of the same things keep coming up, right? The need to express ourselves. For some people, the journey that they've been on, that they've gotten to a place now where they call themselves artists instead of actors, and the feeling that gives them. But also just being able to switch your mindset from sitting and waiting to being somebody that's doing something, that how valuable that can be. One of the things that we hear a lot is people are afraid to try things like, I'm an actor, I don't want to write. I'm an actor, I can't figure out the camera, the lenses, the lighting. We had talked about raising money, but just in terms of like thinking about all the roles that you have to take on, it sounds like you guys just dove right in and did everything and weren't afraid to try and fail. I mean, how did you deal with that fear or doubt?
I think that's always going to be there. But I think for me, the fear of not ever trying or not ever doing it outweighed, the latter. I guess I should say. But, so that always drove me in the sense of that was scarier to me than, I might not be able to figure it out. And the other thing that I'll say is, like, most actors you're in it, you're in plays, you're in rehearsals, you're in table reads, I think you're doing a lot more than you realize. And it's very similar. So, like, good storytelling is good storytelling. And my teacher would always say, good acting is good acting. It's good on stage. It's good in front of a camera. Like, tell a good story. People will forgive maybe not the greatest lighting or not the greatest sound. You know, the guys from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, they have like their famous, I think it was a VHS, maybe it wasn't, but their pilot that they shot on like mini DV tapes in their living room. They didn't have any lights.
Right.
And they didn't have, you know, any like great sound.
Yeah, the other reference is Broad City. A lot of people say, you know, when you saw the early episodes of Broad City, same thing. Right? They just filmed it with a phone. You know, they had good sound, I think, you know, decent sound.
That's kind of the thing. So it's like, it's being creative. You're involved in the whole process. And if you're telling a good story or it's unique or personal, that should be enough to connect with somebody and not get so caught up in the lighting and the technical stuff of it. If that turns you off, you know?
Sure. Well, I think that's a key word too, is process. I think that you hear a lot of people say, well, I want to have good stuff because it's got to do this one thing. And again, what we've been hearing over and over again is there's so much value to be had from the whole process. If you aren't writing an Oscar-winning screenplay, but you're still making things, you've gained, you know, there's been so many benefits that you've gotten from making your own work besides getting acting gigs. But now you're saying that your main gig is editing. You've obviously really expanded your community, right? I mean, that's something I guess we haven't really talked that much about. Can you talk about like how have you met new people and grown in terms of your community through making your own work?
Well, I mean, I'll give you an example. So work gets work, right? And most people do a lot of things in this business. And like I said, very few people really are just actors anymore.
Sure.
I mean, you look at credits now of big time actors are producing, they're writing, they're directing. It's my heart goes out to you if that's all you want to do is act, but a lot of people are doing more things right now. And that can be positive. But to answer your question, because of editing, because of making my own stuff, Kevin and I kind of partnered with two other producers who we're friends with first, who kind of were a little bit different in the sense of they had a big time agent. They were out here. They were pitching and selling. You know, we kind of paired up with this other group that we're friends with that's also a writing team.
Uh-huh.
They basically sold a bunch of stuff. Nothing got made. We made a bunch of stuff. Nothing got sold. So we kind of came together and they were like, we want to make a conscious effort to make more stuff. So we've done multiple projects together, but to give you an example, they came on to produce an independent film called International Falls. They brought me on and our little team with them produced with the executive producers to film all the stuff that happened in LA, which was probably like the exterior is in Minnesota, but it was probably like 60%, 70% in LA.
Yeah.
So through that, because I knew how to edit and I could provide some value. I mean, I was an associate producer on the film. It was Rob.
There's a lot of people you don't get to know normally when you're an actor on set.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, like there's a lot to be said depending on the situation. If it's like come out your trailer, hit your mark, you know, go back in your trailer. You know, like it's different a lot of times. So because of that, and I was on set for the whole thing and all of that, you know, the film starred Rob Hubel and Rachel Harris. Rachel Harris is on Lucifer. She was, you know, the bitchy wife in The Hangover. Rob Hubel's on Children's Hospital and a bunch of other things, Transparent. Kevin Nealon did a day. I got Mindy Sterling to do a day from Austin Powers. So now all of a sudden, you know, you're in this world. I need a couple lines. You know, Nick, you're an actor. Go, you know, heckle Rob Hubel on stage for a little bit, you know, while we do this. So you never know, like, how those things are going to work out because now it all becomes a conversation. Oh, you're an actor. When do you act? Where did you study? Oh, you studied in New York. Oh, you studied with Bill. I know Bill. Who else do you know so-and-so? Yeah. Well, what have you been doing? Well, I just did an indie movie. Oh, when does it come out? I want to see it. Where is it going to be?
So you created an opportunity for yourself by the other things you could do.
Yeah. And it's odd because it's in a weird way more powerful than just being one thing.
Everything that you've talked about has been great. And we could talk so much more about the film that you just made, The Pines. We could talk more about the beginning, you know, how you really started to negotiate all these things that you have to negotiate when you start making your own work. Who's going to write it? How are you going to write it? Who's going to film it? Who's going to edit it? All those things. It sounds like, you know, for your answer was, we just did it, you know, figured it out and did it. You're editing, you're working on a set doing non-acting type work on the set. And then not only do you get acting work out of that entree, you know, the non-acting side door, you also meet these amazing people, because what you're talking about now is My Best Friend's Famous and how that happened.
So the movie that I got on was called International Falls.
Right.
But so I was an associate producer on that, got brought on to do editing, kind of on-site editing, or like DIT work.
Right.
But through that, met, the cast, met the director, met all that, and then had all these conversations about the origins of where, I started and studying, and, them and that. And then on that film, they were like, we need somebody for this part. Nick, you act, like, let's go, like, let's figure it out, So, but then more so even than that was, oh, you made a movie, and that was My Best Friend's Famous. So now these people, you could show them your work outside of, maybe the one thing that they know you're doing on this particular movie,
Okay. So you had already made My Best Friend's Famous.
At that time we did, yeah.
Okay.
But then it became a nice conversation piece where it was like, well, I want to see it. How do I see it? Where is it? Who's in it? How'd you make it? You acted in it, and then that conversation starts kind of happening and percolating. And then you're kind of, on people's radar a little bit as doing different things,
Sure.
So
As someone who's not just an actor, you're doing lots of stuff now.
Yeah, exactly. And, you could, it could kind of go both ways. I started on that set as like DIT editing work, and people found out that I was an actor, and I got a small role, and then I was able to send them my acting work. And then it could happen the other way, where if you're on set as an actor and, you're talking to somebody and they're like, I really needed, an editor or a good DIT. And you're like, well, I do that too. So it can work both ways. In that particular case, that's kind of how it was. So I got a small role, I got a small acting role in that movie. I met a lot of great people. I was able to then develop those relationships and say, hey, here's a movie we just did, this indie movie, and here's some of my acting stuff. And at least even just be able to talk about that intelligently. It was nice too. So I think I respect that.
So I guess I got a little out of order in my head when you made My Best Friend's Famous, because in my mind, that is kind of a next phase of making your own work. You've gone, when you make My Best Friend's Famous, from making work really just to showcase yourself as an actor to now something different, right? Wouldn't you say My Best Friend's Famous was kind of a next level?
For sure. I mean, at that point, we had only made shorts and like sketches and music videos, but from a narrative storytelling purpose, and there could be some actually in music videos, but in terms of us trying to get out there as like, okay, like actor, writer teams, creators, going back to Broad City or It's Always Sunny, that kind of thing, we had only made shorts. We did a pilot on spec by ourselves, sketches, all these things, right? We had a bad experience with a major studio where it fell through, and it was 2.5 years of development. We're like, we could have made a movie. We could have made, all this stuff. So that it kind of was like, that kind of motivated us to be like, okay, we got to do this shit ourselves, or at least dictate some of our own terms, where we're not waiting 2.5 years to be given permission to make something. And we said, okay, well, we made these shorts in this way, which kind of went back to, okay, I edit them, Kevin scores them, we use our own people. Can we elongate that and make a feature? Because a feature is, in a lot of ways, not that it should be all about the money, but at least there's a little bit more of a proven method to maybe really have some kind of longevity or career with it, where you could get some kind of return on investment.
Okay. So now you're talking about making money from something that you make.
Yes.
Because I guess I skipped a phase, because you went from making work for yourself as an actor to, it sounds like, which, we didn't talk about, but working with a studio to create something, writing, shooting.
And very different thing. Look, I'm sure there's good stories, there's bad stories, there's everything in the middle. We were in like a 2.5 year development kind of option with one of our early ideas. Really.
Yeah, how much of this can you talk about without stepping on anybody's toes?
I think I could talk most about it as long as I don't mention any like names,
Sure.
So we basically were in what's called kind of like an if-come deal.
So the question though would be, wait a second, you made your own work. You were an actor. You made your own work, and then all of a sudden, people are going to start trying to pay you to make work. How did you get from here to there?
Well, that goes back to what I said. That all those meetings, from the agent to the studios to the production companies, everybody we met with. We probably met with a good chunk of people in Hollywood in a 6-month period. Big players, and it really showed me kind of the power of the agents. Not that I like it.
Yeah,
it showed me how all of a sudden you go like this, and all of a sudden you have meetings constantly. Was from a pilot we made on our own that we showed them.
And that was Life Behind Bars, right?
The name of the show was Life Behind Bars, and it was about bartenders, high-end bartenders in New York. And there was an element of kind of, it wasn't linear. So in the sense they're in jail, you don't know why.
Right.
That's what they did. So they have these like confessions that are similar to like The Office, but it's in the past, kind of informing the narrative.
Usual suspects for bartenders.
I gotta say, like, it's just so funny how like some of these executives are just so like practical and linear. I'm like, listen, if you take like The Office talking heads, right, or even True Detective, right?
Yeah.
In the past, they're in jail, but the story is you're seeing them in
how
the
they
bar.
got there.
You're trying to say, how did this happen? That's the thing. How I Met Your Mother. Am I ever going to find out how I met your mother? You know? Anyway. But all of that stuff came from work we submitted that 100% we made ourselves.
Uh-huh.
Went to all those executives, all those studio heads, the agent that started working with us saw it, and we all did that just on ourselves, on our own belief in ourselves.
So you're making your own work. Are you then thinking we could be working at a different level? We could be making work that's not just serving our acting careers necessarily. And
Sure.
you're so then pushing it out to people and trying to get it seen? Is that how that works?
Yeah, I think a lot of the early stuff was, the old kind of, okay, it's for us, obviously, it's for us to, as an actor to get seen or as a writer to get seen. And it was kind of the festival circuit. And it was, but, there's a natural growth to want to kind of do it at the next level and
Sure.
and keep going forward. In that particular case, a good friend of ours who happens to be a very big agent saw it and said, what are you guys doing with this? It gets kind of the weird cliche Hollywood thing, but it does happen. And he said, well, we're going to try to pitch it and we're going to take it to, festivals. And he's like, well, do you want me to rep you on this? And that's how it started.
Yeah.
But, all of that, even leading up to that, was kind of building trust in those people and keeping them abreast to what's going on. So when you have that screening that they might connect to, and you don't know what these people are going to connect to.
Sure.
Everybody connects to something different. But that was the one thing that they were like, oh, for whatever reason, you could have just had a weird day. I don't know. And which then further went to, okay, what else do you have? What's in your arsenal? What could I send the studio of your work? What could I send the production company?
Sure.
And then it goes back to, we did 3 sketches for Funny or Die. And
you actually had stuff you could send. Yeah.
The key is making your own work.
I mean, I really can't preach it enough. And, this is what I equate it to. If you're a musician, and I understand making movies and making film, making theater, it is a collaborative thing. But if you're a musician or you're an artist, you're not going to wait to paint a picture for somebody to say, okay, now you're allowed to paint. Okay, I think you're ready. I'm going to pay you, and you're allowed to paint now. You're going to paint. You're going to make music in your house. You're going to, there's
to create
to do it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, that was a bit abrupt. Where were our goodbyes?
Where are our manners? But we end on a really important note. Artists don't wait for permission to create.
And we found the video Nick didn't want you to see, my blowout haircut. We'll have a link to it on our website, and you can find out more about Nick and 418 Films and all that they're working on.
Thanks so much for joining us, and make sure to go to makeyourshow.tv to hear more episodes like this or to learn more about us.